From November 23rd to 25th, 2024, Gaborone, Botswana hosted for the first time the African Economic Conference under the theme Securing Africa's Economic Future amidst rising uncertainty. In this edition of Decryptage, we welcome Madam Norma SEPHUME, Botswana's Presidential Advisor for Economic Affairs. With her, we talk about hosting the conference for the first time, key highlights, and how the new government of Botswana is planning to diversify its economy, dominated by the trade of minerals. Madam Norma SEPHUME, welcome to Africa 24. What does hosting the 2024 African Economic Conference in Botswana mean to the country, and how does it align with the government's broader economic vision?
For starters, very proud. It comes on the backdrop of the elections, as you may know. Very peaceful transition. And with a new change in government, which means that there's a lot to look forward to, very exciting times. And as I said earlier on, it's at a critical juncture because not only do we have a new government, but we also economically are facing some serious headwinds that we need to address. As with other African countries, we have to deal with our youth unemployment, we have to deal with the inequality as well as poverty. And so those are issues that are facing the country, and we need to hit the ground running in terms of addressing those. As my president said yesterday, we have a restless youth that we need to listen to, that we need to engage, that we need to educate and skill so that we prepare them for the future.
What were Botswana's key priorities for this year's African Economic Conference, and how do you hope these discussions will translate into actionable outcomes for the continent?
So, to start off with, the conference is being held in partnership with the multilateral development banks and multilateral agencies, the UNDP, the UNECA, as well as the African Development Bank, and these are our partners. We already collaborate with the three agencies, but more importantly, I think the conversations around, given the environment that faces all of the African countries, what can we do to tackle the challenges, not only economic but socio-economic challenges as well. So it's the ideas, the insights that come out of such forums, and also being able to engage with these experts in terms of not only what we're facing but preparing for the future. I think, like I say, it comes at a critical juncture. The Botswana, and even over the past several years, has been recognizing that we do need to diversify the economy away from reliance on minerals, and those are the kinds of strategies that we've been looking at in terms of how do we move beyond the mineral economy, and what are the things that we need to put in place, what are the industries that we need to focus on. And so conversations like yesterday around the regional development, the regional value chains are really insightful, because then it also allows for collaboration or cooperation with our neighbors, with other countries in the region, in order to be able to make a success of these regional value chains and make sure that we are exporting to the rest of the world. And Africa participates in the global trade much more than it has for up until now. And so, like I said, it's at a critical juncture, because that's what we are faced with. How do we diversify the economy away from mineral revenues and look at other sectors of the economy and developing those sectors of the economy? And so the ideas, the insights from the experts and other stakeholders and other partners in the room are really, really helpful.
Botswana has for a long time been viewed as a role model in terms of economic stability. Any tips for other African countries?
They are. You know, we have a very good track record of prudently managing the mineral reserves up until now. It's been I mean, diamonds were discovered in 1965, 1966, thereabouts, and we've managed to prudently manage the mineral revenues. We've used those mineral revenues to actually develop the country from an infrastructure standpoint, but also being able to deliver education, to deliver healthcare to the Botswana public. But obviously, we need to do more. And so the management and the plans that we periodically put in place in terms of how we are going to develop the country, I think are some things that other countries can learn from. But like I say, that there's at this juncture there's more that needs to be done, and we just needs coming up with those ideas in terms of, now that we've gotten to where we are, thanks to the mineral revenues and the prudent management of those revenues, how do we move it forward? What's the pathway for the future?
During the opening ceremony of the African Economic Conference 2024, the president of Botswana delivered a powerful speech on Africa's resilience amidst global uncertainties. He called for urgent reforms in global financial architecture to better serve African economies. What role does Botswana envision playing in advocating for these reforms, particularly regarding debt and tax governance?
Yeah, so I think the most important insight is in terms of how Africa is viewed in general as being a risky investment destination, and therefore the kinds of criteria and requirements that are placed, and the burden that is placed on African countries, and how it is perceived. And there are, there's two sides to the coin. There are things that countries can put in place in order to de-risk some of the investment that is coming in order to, for example, make projects more bankable when you are getting FDI in. But however, there is still, particularly around debt, there is still a premium that African countries pay. And I think what is most important, and coming out of the conversation and the discussions here, is how African countries need to unify in terms of being at the table and being able to negotiate around some of the issues that are put forward in terms of how the risk assessment and the risk profiling that African countries face. And there should be a mechanism where African countries can say when the Western financial markets are being unfair. And I think this is where the biggest takeaway for me, at least, is that we need a stronger voice as African countries, and being able to call out some of these unfair practices. And in one of the discussions where they were talking about credit rating agencies, and there was a question around making sure that the analysts who are actually reviewing these African countries can contextualize the economies that they are looking at. And so there was a call around having Africans actually sitting in these credit rating agencies and being able to rate and review and assess these countries from a context of being able to understand. And so for me, that is something that is called for, having that unified African voice around the global financial architecture and how we think it should look like, and we being able to use that voice to push back on some of the unfair practices that can happen.
What specific outcomes or commitments did you see emerge from the 2024 African Economic Conference that will directly benefit Botswana and the broader African region?
I think the commitments are already there, particularly from the development partners. I think for me is, how do we ensure that we're putting in place more effective implementation strategies, where now we are moving from the talking, we're moving from the discussions, we're moving from designing and developing the policies and making sure now that it is things that are implementable on the ground and being implemented efficiently. So for me, I think that would be the biggest thing that I want to see, being able to hold up a strategy, a plan, and saying, this is what I'm going to implement, and tomorrow I'm going to start doing that by taking, 1, 2, 3 steps. There was a participant in the audience yesterday who asked in one of the panels and asked each one of them, what are you going to do when you get to the office on Monday? Yeah, so I think, I think it speaks to our people as well, that they've run out of patience. As my president said yesterday, we need to be doing things, and we need to be doing things fast. We don't have time. We need to be agile and be able to respond to the trends that we're seeing. So I think there is an element of probably fatigue in terms of, okay, there's always conferences, seminars, workshops. What comes out of these things? So for me, it should be. We should be in a place now where we come out and say, these are the actions that we're going to take, not only as a continent, but reflections on our side as countries, and say, out of that conversation, these are the things that I want to see. And hopefully working with the development partners, we will get that action plan.
Madam Norma SEPHUME, thank you for answering Africa 21's questions. Dear viewers, thank you for following us. We look forward to seeing you soon.